Hi everybody, welcome to today's video. This is all around getting an ADHD assessment, whether you need one, who can do it, what happens during the assessment, the kind of questions you'll be asked, and then also potentially kind of options moving forward and the types of ADHD that are diagnosed. So we'll go straight into it. So before getting an ADHD assessment, it's important to have a think about, firstly, whether you need one, whether you want one, why you would want one, what you think it's going to bring you. I didn't have my assessment until I was 28, and I'd spent a long time kind of flitting between jobs, in and out of jobs, not staying for too long, getting bored, hitting a ceiling, not wanting to retrain, not really knowing what I wanted to do. And it got to a point where I was kind of getting 18 months into a job, then being signed off sick or leaving because I just wasn't being able to organize or keep on top of things. I was forgetting things. I was making mistakes. I was kind of pretending that I was on top of things when I wasn't, and I needed help with it. So that was why I went down the ADHD assessment route. I've spoken to some people since starting these videos who have sort of said, "Oh, Dan, what you're talking about kind of resonates with me, and I've felt like this for years." But actually, they've managed well, and they don't need an assessment. They don't need a diagnosis. They're doing all right. But it's just good to be aware of what ADHD is and how it can affect you. So this isn't here to kind of tell you that you need an assessment. This is more of a, if you was looking at having an assessment, what to expect and who can assess you and how that all works. So in the UK, the people that can assess you are either a psychiatrist, a specialist ADHD nurse who have done additional accreditations in assessing ADHD, or a psychologist. Your GP and other mental health professionals, such as counsellors, cannot provide you with a formal diagnosis of ADHD. So there is a process to going through this in the UK. If you go to the GP, you would ask for an ADHD assessment. You would then be put on a waiting list. As we know with the NHS, that can take a while. There's sometimes a couple of year waiting lists. Since COVID, those waiting lists have got longer, and since the awareness of ADHD and autism and things like that, there are a lot more people that are now looking to get assessed and diagnosed. So there can be a bit of a wait for it. You can also go privately, and if you choose to go privately, then your costs can range depending on the company, the person, their experience, whether they can also prescribe medication and things like that. So you can go either way. And with the NHS, you can also go through something called the Right to Choose pathway, which is a website called Right to Choose, and it can be quicker. You can kind of choose who you want to do your assessment and things like that. So there are a couple of options there. When it comes to your ADHD assessment, it can take kind of 45 to 90 odd minutes, quite often done in person, but again, with COVID and how that works, it can be conducted over Teams or Zoom or something like that. And during that time, you tend to discuss things like your overall mental health, how it's been, your mental health history, any family mental health issues that have been around. If you've got a family history of ADHD, it can be helpful to mention that, as ADHD is quite highly genetic, around 80 to 85% genetic. And you'll also be asked questions relating to things like your hyperactivity and your inattention. And these are assessed according to something called the DSM-5, which is the Diagnostic Statistical Manual version 5, the criteria for ADHD. So you'll be asked a number of questions that relate to this criteria, and you'll need to answer with examples to demonstrate that that trait or that symptom, which is being assessed, is what you're covering. That's what we're going to have a look at in a minute. After your ADHD assessment, you will tend to have a report that will either kind of say, look, thanks for your time, thanks, we've done your assessment. We either agree that you do meet the criteria for ADHD, or that in this occasion you do not. Either way, there should be some kind of forward support, whether that is help in as far as potentially talking to somebody about medication or CBT or mindfulness or whatever it is, or whether they think there might be another area to kind of explore as well. So following on from that, quite often you would get referred to coaching or something, which is something that I can do. But it could be a bit of a wait. So it's normally GP first on the waiting list. Then you have your assessment with a specialist. Following on from that specialist, you would then get your report, which will or will not have your diagnosis on it. As far as diagnosis goes, they use the DSM-5, that Diagnostic Statistical Manual. Uh, and what you need to consider is that people with ADHD will show a persistent pattern of inattention and or hyperactivity or impulsivity that interferes with functioning and or development. So for the first bit, for the inattention, they're looking at 6 or more symptoms of inattention for children up to age 16, or 5 or more for adults. And these symptoms of inattention must have been present for at least 6 months, and they are inappropriate for your developmental level. Okay, so there's 9 of these that they will ask you about, of which you would need to give examples of when that happens. So the first one is often fails to give close attention to details or makes careless mistakes in schoolwork, at work, or with other activities. So have a think around if that's something that you do, your partner does, your children do. Often fails to give close attention to details or makes careless mistakes in schoolwork, at work, or with other activities. I quite often have a lot of over-organisation at work to help me to be normally organised, because I will miss details, I will forget things, I will think I've done things when I haven't done them. And I will make careless mistakes, which can lead to then kind of things becoming worse. Second one, often has trouble holding attention on tasks or play activities. Flitting from thing to thing, not holding attention. And this is on, again, remembering this is over the last 6 months at least, and inappropriate for their developmental level. So at certain points in life, you would think, oh, most people can do this, or most people that don't have a neurodiversity can do this. So it's when you have issues with those. Third one, doesn't seem to listen when spoken to directly. So just that kind of inattentiveness, like it's going in one ear and out the other, concentrating on something else, not concentrating on anything. And again, having those examples to follow that up. The fourth one, often doesn't follow through on instructions and fails to finish schoolwork, chores, duties at work, loses focus, gets sidetracked, those kind of things. In another video, I will talk about the brain function of us with ADHD, because our messaging system and the way our synapses work is structurally different, which is why quite often we can kind of in our head go, I remember that, I'll do that, I'll do that, I'll do that, I'll do that. What was I doing? Where am I? Why am I in the kitchen? So sometimes you can fail to follow through on instructions, because if there's too many instructions, then they just get scrubbed before the first one's been processed, and then you just fail to finish them. So that's another thing to keep an eye out on. Number 5, often has trouble organising tasks and activities. Again, as children, even as adults, trouble organising, knowing where to be and when, going the wrong way, no sense of direction, no sense of planning. So at work, whether it's for this job, whether it's for my other job, whether it's for the weddings, whether it's for the coaching, I'm kind of over-organised in all of them. I literally will plan as much as I can 2 or 3 months in advance as far as meetings and scheduling and videos and stuff like that goes, because otherwise I will just be unorganised, not know where I am, not know what I'm doing, and it all becomes a bit overwhelming then. And then you kind of get that paralysis of well, I'm so overwhelmed, I won't do any of it. Often dislikes, always reluctant to do tasks that require mental effort over a long period of time, such as schoolwork or homework. This one's quite tricky, because actually we live in a world where you don't really need to do stuff that requires mental effort over a long period of time, because everything is so instantaneous now. Things like Netflix, Amazon Prime, Deliveroo, Google, we've got AI and Chat GPT now. Like, you don't have to think. It's a really, really difficult skill to lose, because it's really important. But we're now talking about the fact that it's now inappropriate, it's causing problems, and it's not right for your developmental age. That's what we're talking about. Lots of us will struggle with things that require mental effort or research over a long period of time, because we don't have the skill, because we haven't needed it. We're now talking about this in line with it being inappropriate and causing problems. Next one is often loses things necessary for tasks and activities. So, school materials, the amount of times I would turn up to school with a bag that only had, I don't know, my lunch and a bottle of water in, because I couldn't remember what books I had for the day, and I kind of would try and blag my way through everything. It's really bad. But yeah, pencils, books, tools, wallets, keys, phone, paperwork, glasses, just literally misplacing things and not knowing where they are, or putting them on the side and being like, I remember that I've put them on the side, and convincing yourself that this time it will be different and you will remember that, and then not remembering that. But again, you're getting that to the point where it's been happening for the last 6 months at least, and it's causing problems rather than it just because you're not concentrating and it doesn't matter. It's got to be causing kind of issues or problems at work or at home or at school. Eighth one is often easily distracted. So, you could be sitting here doing a video, and if your Apple Watch goes off, you're straight on it because you're reactive to everything that's going on around you, or something drives past, so you look out the window, or you will, just get easily distracted. And in my last video, I literally did that. I was talking away. Something happened. Can't even remember what it was now, but I just lost focus completely, and I had to stop and then record the second bit later on because I just could not focus on what I was doing. And then the last one is often forgetful in daily activities. Now this one is quite, so it'll be like, oh, we'll go, right, I'm going to put a wash on, put the stuff in the washing basket, leave the washing basket there, go downstairs, start washing up, put the plates on the side to dry, go in the front room and get the Hoover out, then go back upstairs for something and go, oh yeah, I was going to put the washing on, then go back and put the washing on, then realise I hadn't put the plates away, then go back and do the hoovering. Or you could apply that to several activities at work. I'll email that person back now, start the email, go and do something else, come back, realise I haven't done the email, and forgotten to do things and things like that. So that's where the over planning and scheduling tools and things can be really, really helpful. So you're looking at 6 of those for children up to the age of 16, where it's happening consistently over the last 6 months and it's causing problems, or 5 for adults. Okay, so that's what you're looking at. At the end of this as well, I will put up the results from my diagnosis, just so you can see where I ranked on that one. And that is purely for the inattentive side. The second part is the hyperactivity and impulsivity. And this is normally the bit that's associated with ADHD, is that kind of Tasmanian devil, always on the go, running around, hyper and impulsive, impossible to control, always kicking off, that kind of thing. So again, you're looking for 6 or more of these for children up to 16, or 5 or more for adults. And the same thing applies, present for the last 6 months to an extent that is disruptive and inappropriate for somebody of that age or for somebody in that position. So you've got 9 of these as well. First one, often fidgets or taps with hands or feet or squirms in their seat. And lots of the people that I work with and I coach will have that. I quite often tap my foot. I'm pretty sure if I watch this video back, I will have been moving or rubbing my face or something like that. I'm currently holding a microphone as well, which I'm playing with at the same time. So it tends to be that you're fidgeting or you're doing something. In some cases, it can help you with concentration. Sometimes it's just a habit that you do in order to keep yourself focused. Again, for children, it can be really hard squirming in their seat because you go to a restaurant and you're like, right, you've got to sit down and have your meal, and they just have this impulsivity to not be able to sit still. Second one, often leaves a seat in a situation where remaining seated is expected. I'm pretty all right with that now that I'm older and at work, and quite often I work from home. But even sat here, I will do something and I would just have this need to get up and go and make a cup of tea, or go in the garden, or go downstairs, or do something just to get out of my seat, even though chances are I would probably be expected to be sat in my seat all day. And if you apply that again to children at school, where you're expected to be sat during your lessons and not be getting up and doing things like that, it can be quite tricky. So, you're looking at those sort of behaviours. And I would quite often, when I was at school, get up, go and ask my teacher something. Can I go to the bathroom 6 times in a 1-hour lesson? They must have thought I had a problem. Or go and speak to your mate of the class. But Dan, go and sit down. And you're like, oh yeah, sorry. You don't even realise that you're doing it. It's almost an unintentional thing because it's that impulse. Third one, often runs around and climbs in situations where it's not appropriate. For us as adults, it might be limited to feeling restless. At 30, whatever I am, I don't tend to sit upside down on the sofa and climb the walls and jump off tables. But I probably did when I was a child. And if you spoke to my parents, then they would probably go, you were just on the go all the time. So it could be climbing all over the sofas, jumping off of things, sitting upside down, just climbing around where you probably wouldn't climb around, or other children or young people wouldn't necessarily be doing that because they would just sit on a chair. I can quite often feel restless. Okay, I don't have a very physical job, any of my jobs. That's why I love photographing the weddings, because you're on the go all day and you're exhausted by the end of it, but you feel like you've got rid of that energy. So if I've sat kind of all day on screens, and then I've gone and done coaching in the evening, I can quite often get to kind of 9, half 9 at night and feel restless, mentally tired maybe, but physically I haven't got rid of that energy, that pent up energy that I need to get rid of. So it could be that. Number 4, often unable to play or take part in leisure activities quietly. So it could be that they just like, can we play now? Can we play now? Can we do this? Can we go and do that? Or just that making noise or screaming when they're playing, or shouting or calling out, or just shouting downstairs for you. Just that inability to, that impulsiveness of kind of wanting people to know that I'm doing stuff. Next one is often on the go or acting as if driven by a motor. That was a huge one for me growing up, and still now I really struggle to kind of switch off in the evening unless I feel like I've done everything I need to do. So that often, like, and your kids might look or behave the same, or your partners, that driven by a motor, got to keep going, got to do this, need to get that done before I can do this, has got to go, can we go and do this now? Which leads quite nicely into the next one, which is often talks excessively. So a couple of videos in, you know that I talk a lot, I talk fast, then I realise it and I slow down. Soon it will go back to being fast again. But with ADHD, we can often talk excessively about things that we're interested in, question a lot of things. Why are the stars there? Why does the universe do this? What would happen if that happened? So again, going back to the beginning of these being present for 6 months and they're being disruptive and causing kind of issues. Number 7, often blurts out an answer before a question has been completed. Again, falls in line with that impulsivity and that hyperactivity. So just not giving time to process and just blurting things out before kind of having time to think it through. Quite often that's because we process quite fast, sometimes incorrectly, often not. But we process fast, we come up with a solution and we want to get it out there. 1, before we forget, and 2, because sometimes we're like, oh, that's cool, let's share that with everyone. Number 8, often has trouble waiting his or her turn. So whether that is queuing up for dinner at school, obviously, potentially at work, playing games, when you go to theme parks, for those of you that enjoy that sort of thing, just having trouble, just that impulsivity of like, oh, I'm bored now, I need to get going, I don't want to wait around, I don't want to waste time. And then finally, often interrupts or intrudes on others. So joins in conversation, butts into conversation or games. Again, we as a family, and we're quite good at that, but actually we don't mind it. Everyone just talks over each other and everyone just does it. It's not an issue. But so of those 9 things: fidgeting, leaving your seat, running around, climbing in situations that's not appropriate, unable to play quietly, on the go, driven by a motor, talks a lot, blurts out answers before questions have been completed, trouble waiting their turns, or often interrupts and intrudes on others. Again, thinking of those examples where that happens means that you may, if you've got 5 or 6 of those, 6 as a child, 5 as an adult, potentially meet the criteria for hyperactivity and impulsivity side of ADHD. In addition to those sets of questions, the following conditions must also be met. Several inattentive or hyperactive impulsive symptoms were present before the age of 12 years old. So this is something, ADHD is something that you are born with, you have as a child. You don't kind of randomly become ADHD at 35. It's there from a child, and you can see that those symptoms were present, and there's examples of those, whether it's from you, from your parents, from school, whoever. Several of the symptoms are present in 2 or more settings, so at home, at school, at work, with friends, when you're out, wherever it is. So, you know, it doesn't just settle in one place, in one situation, it's across a couple of different settings. There's clear evidence that the symptoms interfere with or reduce the quality of social, school, or work functioning. And that is one of the key things, is that throughout my life, these symptoms have had an effect on my relationships, my friends, partners, and things like that, my schoolwork, my work functioning, my social life. You know, I've got a wonderful set of friends, but I've also got friends that I've probably lost due to my impulsivity and my behaving like an idiot. Jobs that I've lost because I've just not behaved appropriately, or I've forgotten things, or I've not turned up to meetings and things like that. So there's clear evidence of that throughout my life as well, where this has interfered with me being able to just function like somebody that doesn't have ADHD. And finally, the symptoms don't happen during the course of another psychotic disorder. So it could be mood disorder, anxiety disorder, dissociative disorder, BPD, bipolar, personality disorder, ADHD, autism, all these things often come with a grey area that could overlap into other things. So bipolar and ADHD often can be diagnosed or misdiagnosed because you have these highs of everything's great, ADHD is brilliant, I'm on top of the world, followed by these crushing lows of I need to quit my job, I can't do this, I've got to leave, I can't do anything. And it's very, very up and down rather than across. Again, that's another video. There's loads of videos to come, loads of cool stuff to come your way. So based on the symptoms and the examples and things that you give, there are kind of 3 presentations of ADHD that can occur. So you can have the predominantly hyperactive, impulsive presentation. So obviously you're mainly impulsive, mainly hyperactive, mainly on the go. That would have definitely been me when I was younger. The predominantly inattentive presentation. So that is the same inattentive side. So the more of the kind of not concentrating, zoning out, less hyperactive, but more inattentive. Kind of makes sense, doesn't it? Or the combined presentation, which is where I probably am now. I've been diagnosed with the combined presentation because it does change over time. So your ADHD will change from childhood to teenage to adolescence to adult, and I'll let you know how it changes as we go forward. And the combined presentation is kind of a mix of both. So I've definitely got the impulsive hyperactivity side sometimes. I've also got the inattentive side sometimes where I just can't concentrate or really struggle to get things done, and just don't focus. So 20 minutes, that's a long old video. So well done for those of you that have stayed this long. This one will definitely be on YouTube, and hopefully there will be the short form content to lead you into this. But any questions, let me know in the comments and things if you feel like this is something that you present with, or your partner does, or your children do, if it's something you feel you need a diagnosis for, or if not. And also let me know what you want to know. Like if there's anything that you kind of want covering, there's loads of content planned, but I want to gear this up towards the people that are watching it. So if there's anything you do want to know, drop it in the comments below. Message me on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. WhatsApp me if you've got my number. And yeah, I hope you found that useful. Have a good day.